Welcome everybody, and our new Vice-Chancellor Professor Amit Chakma, members of the UWA Executive and especially members of the Winthrop Society. Last year we met at the Lawrence Wilson Gallery for a high tea. I regret I can't be present with you in the EZONE building this year. The Winthrop Society was established 13 years ago to honour friends of the University of Western Australia who have included a gift to the university in their wills. And I am proud to be the patron of the Society and to be able to express our gratitude for your continued support. Your gifts are acts of public-spirited generosity and the university is deeply appreciative of them. Our university was founded upon bequests and endowments. They have been and remain a vital support for our great mission in the creation and transmission of human knowledge. What we have accomplished is due in no small part to that support. The bequests continue to provide life-transforming opportunities for our students and our academics. The building in which you're sitting today is a concrete expression of the way in which such opportunities are created. UWA EZONE received extensive support from our donors and bequestors, and in particular from the bequest of engineering alumnus Mr. Bob Telford. In recognition of his generosity, two of the EZONE's most important new learning and research spaces were named after him: the Telford Thermodynamics Lab and the Telford Thermodynamics Engine Room. I hope that you enjoy today's presentation and trust you will have the opportunity to explore EZONE. It's now my pleasure to invite our Vice-Chancellor Professor Amit Chakma to deliver his address. Professor Chakma joined us at UWA in July. We are fortunate to have the benefit of his many years of experience in leadership in the higher education sector and the fresh outlook he brings to help steer us through these challenging times. I know you will welcome him as I have. Once again, I apologise for being unable to attend, and I thank you for your support for the university we love. I look forward to seeing you at future Winthrop Society events.
Kaya. Thank you, Mr. Chancellor. It is my pleasure to join our Chancellor to welcome you and to thank you for your generous support of the university. It is also my duty to give you perhaps a brief update, a brief report on how your alma mater, in the case of many, and your beloved institution for all, I'm pretty sure, is doing. Well, we had a challenging year, like many of us around this room and around the world. In spite of those challenges, we have much to celebrate. This university continues to build on the legacy that established 100+ years ago, and we build from strength to strength over the years because of hard work of all involved and the support from the community. We have created one of the great universities in the world. And I can speak as a newcomer. I have watched this institution from far away, sitting in Canada, and part of the reason I watched this institution is because of the similarities between UWA and my old academic home, UWO. It's only 20 years apart in terms of age of the two institutions, but in terms of mandate, in terms of culture, and many other things, we are quite similar. However, there's one area where this university performed better than the UWO, that is in global ranking. And I took notice, sitting on the other side of the world, so well, what it is that UWA is doing that we can learn from. And actually I engaged a consultant to help me to do some research about UWA. So that tells you that looking at it from the point of view of others who are knowledgeable about education sector, that this university has done well. And I'm indeed very proud to now have the privilege of providing leadership to this great institution. Well, we have made the top 100 list. Some of you who have followed my earlier remarks would know that I don't pay too much attention to ranking, in the sense that I pay attention to it as a guide, but I don't think we should be driven by ranking, because it may lead us to doing things that are not that important. I do believe that if we do things that are important, over time, our reputation will rise, our ranking will rise. And this year, we are delighted that we are in the top 80. Next year, if it becomes within top 90, because global comparison, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. However, I'm going to lose sleep over situations where if we fail to attract top students from WA to make UWA as top choice, as many of you have done in the past. And we have challenges to overcome on that front. So this just gives you a little bit of sense of where we are and some of the challenges that we may face. Whatever those challenges are, I'm convinced that we are a very strong university. The fundamentals of this university remain strong. And they rest with people. They're our students, our academic staff, our support staff. I'll just give you one example of the commitment of our staff to this great institution. When faced with significant uncertainty and financial challenge, my colleagues, this is before my arrival, collectively agreed to forego a portion of their salary to help the university. Sitting in Canada, I was not quite sure how the vote was going to go. And I could not believe, and I was thrilled to see the results, that overwhelming majority of staff voted actually to forego their personal benefits for the benefit of the university. One more progress report. That decision was made in July. It is going to continue till next June. In the meantime, things turned out for the better. Our fiscal situation, while we are not yet out of the woods, is much better than what we are fearful of. As a result, we are able to announce the end to that salary sacrifice program, and effective January 1st, that program will come to an end. So obviously, this is good news for our staff, but it's also a good reflection of the progress that we have made working collectively. So your university, our beloved university, has turned the corner. We still have a lot of work to do, but we are now working towards creating a better future for all of us. Of course, we are here to celebrate our benefactors, people who love this place so much so that they have given their savings, their resources, so that we can continue to do the good work that generations of people have been undertaking at this university. So it is my delight now to share 3 stories of bequest that we have received over the course of the year, during the year of the pandemic. So the challenges pandemic has created for all of us has not stopped generous people from displaying their generous act, and in this case, giving us bequest to do very important things. So let me begin with example number 1. After a long and happy life together, Bill and Paula Fraser died within a few short months of each other, leaving the majority of their estates to UWA for the advancement of medicine, music, and architecture. And of course, we're going to put those resources to good use. Their generous support has already contributed to our research efforts in combating COVID-19. Dr. Peter Deura, a science alumnus of UWA, was taken from us suddenly and far too early. He was a passionate sportsman and a champion weightlifter whose extraordinarily generous bequest will support education and research for years to come. Example number 3. Miss Milan Chai came from Malaysia to complete her university studies here and never forgot the value of what she learned. Her bequest for the advancement of Asian studies will help future generations of our students to better understand our neighbors. So they are already making their mark. All bequest build our future as they have built our past. Winthrop Hackett's bequest fundamentally shaped our university. We are honored that we have been entrusted with such legacies, and we promise faithfully that we will steward them into the future. As I indicated, this is a challenging time for universities across the world. But we are meeting the challenge head on and doing the work that is necessary to ensure that UWA will stand proudly for future generations of Western Australians and the people from all over the globe who choose to study with us. On behalf of my colleagues at the university, I make the following commitment to you. This university will continue to seek wisdom as our founders have envisaged. It will continue to be at the forefront of knowledge creation. It will continue to advance prosperity, welfare, and learning of Western Australians. And it will continue to face the world and the future with confidence. This building, EZONE, is at the heart of our strategy to advance students' learning experience, in this case, of course, for engineering students, focused on science and engineering. We intend to do more of it. We intend to redouble our efforts in making sure that our students are getting the best learning experience that they can get anywhere in the world. So Western Australians should be able to find the best learning environment in their homes, next to their home, on their home front. They don't have to seek it elsewhere. They may have other reasons to gain international experience, which I personally encourage. But if they're seeking to get best quality of education, we intend to provide that right here at UWA. There are areas, of course, in which we already excel on a global scale, thanks to the outstanding professors that we have, and thanks to the generous support of benefactors such as yourself. Well, you'll soon be hearing from one of our great academics, Professor Anas Ghadouani, who will be speaking to you very soon. And once you listen to him, you'll not only know about the world-class research that we conduct here, you'll also know that our world-class research professors are also inspiring teachers, so they inspire our future generation of learners. Thank you once again for your kindness, for your generous support. I look forward to getting to know all of you over the course of my tenure here at UWA, and that process begins today. I have already met a few of you, and I'm going to try to do my best to get to know as many of you as I can. If I miss you for whatever reason, I'll catch up with you at the next opportunity. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon again. It is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Anas Ghadouani. Anas is a Professor of Environmental Engineering and also Program Chair for Environmental Engineering, which means that he oversees the program of units that students study in order to have the Masters in Professional Engineering and Environmental Engineering. He leads a very successful research group, Aquatic Ecology and Ecosystem Studies. Anas has over 20 years' experience in research and teaching on water issues, during which time he has led many large-scale multidisciplinary projects in Australia and overseas. He is an expert advisor to a number of organisations and agencies and a founding member and past executive director of the $120 million Cooperative Research Centre for Water-Sensitive Cities. Please join me in welcoming Anas.
Thank you. What a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. I don't stand at the lectern. I'm going to explain to you in a minute why. There's a story about that. But I would like just to say thank you to everyone who's here for your commitment to education. I think, in my view, the best gift that you can give is the gift of education, because it keeps on growing everywhere. They have legs. They're everywhere. They drive businesses. they are CEOs, our students are changing the world. And every day, when I go to places and I work with lots of industries, I walk in a room and I find my students there. So that's a sign that I'm been a little bit too long. But it's also, the mood in the room changes, because you can see that the feeling that there is a déjà vu, that we have been in the same room, and I think that's extraordinary. So I'd like to thank you for your commitment, and also thank my colleagues here at UWA for their commitment to making this university a best place. We don't say thank you enough to each other. With that, I'm now going to invite you to my classroom. So just sit and relax and enjoy the ride, because that's what we do, what we have to do. I mean, I like the fact that this event is called Hearts and Minds. So we deal with students who are extremely smart. Their mind is very busy. And we have to make it to them. We have to explain to them why they're learning the learning that they do. You can't get someone's mind without touching their heart. And I think that's something that we have to do every day in our classroom. So gone the days where you sit in the classroom. When I was a student, we used to finish our own lectures, and we used to sit in the law school as well and listen to lectures there, because there's a famous lecturer there, and we sit there and listen. People don't have time for that anymore. So we have to create an environment where there is active learning, where they sit together, they learn together. So this building, EZONE, is an exemplification of that philosophy. A few years back, with colleagues like Sally and others, we sat down in meetings with our architects, and they were asking us, what is education these days? What is the education of the 21st century? And we talked and talked for almost years. And there was these gentle architects. They were not very, they were soft-spoken. They were taking notes. Every time we met, they were taking notes and asking questions. And every time I walk in this magnificent building, I see our ideas. So this is such an amazing achievement that we have done at UWA, creating a building that is focused on collaborative learning and focused on students' well-being, their ability to work together. You can see the spaces here. Students sometimes like to work in group of 2, 3, 4. Learning is a social activities. We have to create those environments. Anything you can think about it, we have here. And I think this building can do a lot. On the technical side, we have sensors everywhere, so we can feel how the building is doing, if there is wind, if it's hot, if it's cold. And our students get the data, and they can actually apply it to that learning. So today, it's about really the relevance of the learning that you're doing. It's about making sense of it for now, not for 5 years later. It's a bit of a challenge. We have to keep the mind with us, and we have to show them why they're learning these things. So back to myself. I grew up in Morocco. I was born in Morocco, and I did my undergrad in Morocco, and I moved to Canada to do my studies there. I was always about water. So I thought, what's the best place to go to study water? Canada, that has 20% of the world water, 20% in one place. So I went there, and I studied, water research there. And one day I was sitting in my office, Friday afternoon. I was called to the chair's office, the chair of the department. Now, for those of you who know Canada, the chair of the department is someone very important. So if they call you to their office, you're either in trouble or something extraordinary is about to happen. So the chair set me in the room and says, look, Anas, Professor Carignan is gone to hospital. On Monday, you're taking his class. I had 2 days to get into the shoes of one of the most extraordinary teacher, with a bit of a funny character too. So people didn't like him outside the classroom as much. But in the classroom, he was amazing. he told stories. And I was like just watching what he does. So I ran to the library and got that book called Leaving the Lectern. So the whole book is about how you should not stand there and lecture students, but you should engage with students and create a collaborative learning environment. And that was the start of my journey, really, about the, So in Canada, students will come to you to the first time. The first week, they're doing shopping. They shop for the classes. They shop, they go around. And if they like the lecture, they stay. If they don't, they go. That was surprising. They look at the syllabus, also they turn it, they go like, is this in the exam? I say, oh no, that's just for your own, they go like, no, okay, move on. So I learned a trick there. It goes like, never tell the students it's not in the exam. So I invented a little trick. I used to say to the students, here's the thing, you have to watch me. If I'm standing in this side of the room, it's in the exam. If I'm standing in the other side, maybe. So they paid attention. So you had to create a whole bunch of, things. Even with water, right? So I'm supposed to talk to you about water today, remember? Just to remind me, because that's really... But I'm going to make a promise to you. Because that book says every lecture you have to make a promise to people. You have to make a promise to our students every time that what they're gonna learn at the end of this. So at the end of today, every one of you is gonna learn one new thing that they've never heard about before. Okay? Everyone is in? Yes, good. And you're gonna make the commitment to go and speak to someone else about it. All right? Say, for example, I'll give you an example. I teach wastewater engineering. So I say to my students, my goal is to teach you enough about wastewater engineering that it becomes your dinner table conversation, and that's my goal. Otherwise, I will fail. Really interesting topic. We're not going to talk about it today, though. So, leaving the lecture. So some people hug the lecture there, and they just stand there and go like, no, I'm terrified, I don't like it. Now you may see these carpets here. So what I do with this as well is that's a little bit of a trick as well. So if I'm talking about dangerous ideas, I stand on the red one. Dangerous ideas, controversial ideas, things that are still cutting edge. If it's in between, I'm here. If it's boring knowledge, I'm there. So because I'm not supposed to teach only the stuff that I believe is cutting edge, there's lots of stuff that is okay. So we stand here. I keep everyone watching. Sometimes they even go like, you're standing in the wrong carpet. You need to move in the red. Because I had Professor Simon here, our SDVC, come and give a lecture on nuclear energy. And, the students were like, Professor Simon, maybe you should stand in the red for a while, because it's quite an interesting, controversial idea in terms of energy, future energy, and all of that. So, water. I mean, many of you have heard that we have a water. How many of you think we have a water problem? We have. What kind of water problem do you think we have? Huh? Shortage. Pardon? Not enough fresh. Quality. Anything else? Salt. Okay, so let me just tell you this. Water shortage is really not a problem, because water that we have had in the world since about 3.9 billion years is the same amount. So this is what you're going to learn today, right? That number. So everyone remember that number? 1,409,500,000. It's a joke. This is not the one. Pardon? Yeah, you get at the test at the end. Now the problem here is that one of the simplest questions that people ask, well, how much water there is in the world? It's a simple question. It's one of the hardest to achieve. We can't tell really. These are lots of people have tried. This is a number. There's other numbers. The geologists will tell you there is more. There's 4 times the amount of the ocean in the rocks. You know, so there's a lot about water that we don't know, but we don't have water shortage. And I'm going to prove it to you. Because water, this is what you're going to learn today. Water is a transport issue. It's not a water availability. And here's why. You can see on those slides, you can see that's the total amount. 97% of it is in the ocean. There's the 3 dots there, 3%. 1% falls in the wrong place. 1% falls in the wrong time. And 1% we have for all of us to share, of which Canada owns 20%. So we have a problem. That's the amount that we have to deal with. But the problem actually is moving water from place to place. So I'll give you an example. And that's why, you know, when you're thinking about water, it's about imagination. It's not really a technology problem. We know enough about water from the old days. I'll give you an example, very simple example. I come from Morocco. How many of you have been to Marrakesh? Yeah, Marrakesh, beautiful city. It's rather green. It's not supposed to be green. So when they were thinking about it 1,000 years ago, they were thinking about building Marrakesh. The leader of the time went around looking for a place to build Marrakesh. And they stood somewhere, and he said, here. And they looked like, there's no water. And he went like, there. You see that? That's the Atlas mountain. Right there. He says, there, and walks away. 1,000 years ago, engineers took that water from there, hundreds of kilometers, and brought it to the city of Marrakesh and make it green the way you look at it. It's still, that scheme is still operating. No pumping, no energy required, no nothing. You see examples of this everywhere. Western Australia here, you know, there was a time where, you know, the water needed to get water to Kalgoorlie, right? And that's the single biggest engineering intervention in the history of WA that put Western Australia on the map. Transport problem. It's a transport solution. You take the water from the hills and you send it all the way to Kalgoorlie, 600 kilometers. Easy. Big. They spend the GDP of the state twice for that pipeline. Still operating today, 38 pumping stations that you can do now. Now here's the trick. We produce water from anything today at about under $2 a kiloliter. Like, once it arrives to Kalgoorlie, we spend on it $12 to transport it. That's the challenge. Now, as Australia is growing, doubling in population, we can't afford that. We have to find local solutions, and we have to deploy technology that is fit for purpose, that is decentralized, and we have to go away from those big things that we did in the past. Now, also what we do now, you know, for those of you, except for you, Amy, you know everything about it. She works at the Water Corporation. So it used to be the water from the catchment that we used to pump to Kalgoorlie, but now it's the water from the ocean. We desalinate the water, we put it in the dam, and we push it. If there was no gravity, it would be okay, but you have to pump it 38 times, you know, pumping stations, plus you have to chloraminate, you add like chlorine, not just chloramine, because it travels long. Some of those pipes become 50 degrees because it's hot, so that's a recipe for disaster. So what we do, we desalinate water, we put it in the dam, and we pump it. So, you know, now we can desalinate it locally eventually, right? So there are lots of things that we can do differently now, you know, that we'll have to do in the future to solve these issues. So again, it's really not technology. Water is about vision. Is about someone saying, do that, get the water from there. Now, I'll give you another one. The Canadians, a very cute example. I arrived to Canada, 92. collapse of the cod fisheries. There was fisheries one, they had this software. Apparently it appears that the software did the wrong thing. There was fish one day. Everyone went out, came back with no fish. Lots of people think of resources as a linear dynamic. They go like, let's just use the resources until we get closer, but it actually goes zero overnight. So cod fishery is really important in Canada, and overnight, cod fishermen were without job. Families and big crisis and whatever. This smart person says, okay, water is a transport problem. I'm going to think about cod fisher people, and I'm going to get some water, and here's a business opportunity. There's lots of iceberg that you see in Canada. Have you heard of Titanic? What happened to the Titanic? Was in the wrong place, the captain was, but the reason is that there's lots of icebergs everywhere. So this person says, okay, we're going to hire the fishermen, or we're going to get them to fish the beautiful ice blocks that have been there for the age of that water is like thousands of years. We're going to bring that ice and we're going to tow it. Now, when you take that ice and make it melt, you put the probes in it and it shows zero. For those of you who know electroconductivity, any water you put something, it's water from the tap is about 200 units. The water from the ice, zero. It's pure and it's old water. They added alcohol to it and they called it iceberg vodka. Now think about that. Transport problem. I know that lots of people say, oh, if we run out of water, can we go get, just pull some glaciers and pull them? There's an idea. There's a project where people can just get the ice blocks from somewhere and just you have plenty of water. It may be cheaper. There's a lot of, ships that go to places with petrol in them and then they come back, empty. So they say, oh, I'll get some water from Canada. Or that didn't really get well with the Canadians because they are very protective about their 20%. And I'm looking there, I'm Canadian too, and Australian and Moroccan. So to my Canadian friends, I go you're a little bit there because if you're sitting on all that water and going, it's ours. And I know that the Americans have a plan to go tap the water anytime because there is lots of shortage of water in the US. And there's the plan called the Big Canal to go to Canada and take the water. Obviously, they will ask for permission. But when water becomes a big issue. So water is actually a transport problem. But water is also a food problem. Because here's the problem again. People don't drink really when you think about drinking and showering and all of that. I know the Water Corporation says 3-minute showers. It's really, you don't drink 2 liters of water. You actually eat about 3,500 liters of water per day. Because of that block of water that I showed you earlier, 70% of it gets used to produce food. That's globally. That's the big issue. That's the big drama, is actually in the fact that we take all that water, and here's some examples. You have a kilo of beef is 15,000 liters of water. Coffee is not that bad, 132 liters. Sugar, 1,700 liters. An apple is about 822 liters. What happens? We throw 1/3 of the production globally, 1/3 of the food produced untouched in the bin. We just produce it, we throw it in. So if we stopped food wastage, you can take longer showers. I can promise you. But here's the heartbreaking one. The biggest item in terms of food signature is chocolate. When I was doing this research, this actually broke my heart. 24,000 liters of water per kilo of chocolate. Like a tank full of... I know that everyone feels bad about this, but I'm not going to tell you to stop eating chocolate, especially with the festivities. But it's really important here to just reflect on the idea that we interact with water in so many different ways. So it is not just the tap, it is not just the shower, it is many, many things. And that's why we're now encouraging lots of our organizations, water utilities. In fact, I helped write the strategic plan for the Water Corporation in the next many years, 10, 20 years, and 30. And the idea there is to diversify and to look at water as more of a city's settings. Going back to what you're looking here behind me, this is the Sustainable United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And as part of touching the hearts of the students, we say to them, what you're learning here is going to make you an engineer, you're going to make a lot of money. But you need to be happy being an engineer. So can you think of doing something extra in terms of relevance, in terms of why am I learning this? One of the questions on students' mind is, why am I learning this? It's so hard to do all this integration, all these Simpson calculations and all of that. Why is it? So when we present them with these ideas here, and you say every time you're doing something, you look at it from the lenses of Sustainable Development Goals, there is so much that you can do, and students suddenly start acting differently, learning differently, thinking big, looking at opportunities, and modifying their approach to design. One simple example, we say build a desalination, build a water infrastructure that has in mind gender equality. Now, lots of people will say to me, what does gender equality have to do with water? And I go like, I'll give you an example. Every day, there is an 8-year-old girl who travels, these are statistics of the United Nations, that travels 8 kilometers on foot to fetch water for her family, and she skips school, not the boy. The girl skips school to fetch water for the family, on average 8 kilometers on foot. So the shortcut to a better world is educating young girls, and educating young girls means you have to give the village the water, you have to provide access to, and then suddenly people start thinking differently about design. Because again, it's really not about the money, it's really not about the technology, it's really about the imagination. And I think the imagination is this thing that is so big, we can't put a dollar value on it. And this is something we can give. We give at the university, I think it's our business is to trigger the imagination. The other thing is the passion. If people are passionate about what they're doing, you know, nobody, I mean, like, honestly, maybe some of you will, but nobody is really passionate about a series of equations. You know, I've heard maybe in my lifetime one person say, oh, that's a beautiful equation. But usually it's not something that people really are excited about. But if you show them how to change the world, they'll go and crack the equation. Our students are smart, so smart you can't even believe it. I mean, we have students, we throw at them whatever you can think of, they'll do it. It's really true. It's amazing. So I think we live in a bubble of excellent students and excellent colleagues, but it's still, you know, the next level is to provide that passion and trigger that passion and allow them to shape the world or reshape the world in many ways. So we tell stories, and we tell stories to inspire. So, you know, one of my students says, you should start a podcast. I go like, what can't we do for our students? So that's what I did. I started a podcast. It's called Water You On About. Because sometimes I just go on about things. And my associate and excellent, brilliant engineer, Leah, sitting next to me, she's a postdoc here, one of our top graduates in the university. When she was in high school, she topped the whole state. So brilliant. Sometimes she looks at me and go like, what are you on about, Anas? And that's where the idea came from. So we do this podcast together, and we just talk about stories about water. And students tune in and listen. So podcasts, you can jump in through, you know, iPad, through whatever you can do. It's there. But students like this. It's something that students like these days, to listen to podcasts. I mean, I remember I used to listen to radio, and used to, but it's kind of coming back. So those are the other things that we can do, is to inspire our students through storytelling. Going back to that professor who got me in trouble because he says, ask Anas before going to the hospital. He was an amazing storyteller. Every time I attended his lectures, he had a first-hand story about everything that everyone was talking about that was in the textbooks. And that, to me, that was fascinating. He was there, either he was a student or whatever. Mind you, Canada has lots of water scientists because there's lots of water. When I was doing my PhD, I had 5 lakes that I could do anything to them. The university says, you go play with those lakes. That we own them, so you can modify them, you can study them, you can do whatever. So, there was a lot of discoveries around. And I think for us at the university, we have good people who are connected to extraordinary conversation, to things that are happening real time. And when our students see that happen in the classroom, you tell them a story firsthand that you advised the minister on the next thing. Sometimes things happen. I was teaching the class and I said, this is what's going to happen one day, because we have to wait for the minister to make the release. Next day after the lecture, there was a formal release of the report, and the students came to me, I saw it in the news. I was like, good. I didn't lie to you. So it's really interesting that everything, the books, people can find books, they can watch the internet, but you really have to bring it together to make that relevance and to get at the front of ways of triggering that interest, because there's no limit to what this generation can do. So I think I'll just leave it there. If there is any questions, I'll be really happy to answer them. Someone told me you're going to ask me hard questions. You're welcome to. Technology, again, in terms of water, we have it. The Water Corporation is doing amazing work. Remember, we take the water from desalinate, from the ocean, and we turn it into water that goes into your tap. I mean, that is amazing. And it delivered to your house, right? So there was a time where we were talking about a canal from the top. That's also possible. Doesn't mean that it's feasible or economically viable or politically or visionary or whatever, but anything you want, we can do for you. What we need is to get that vision, and I think that's really what's important. So Western Australia, we're doing all right in terms of water. Just don't break the wastewater by flushing anything if there was ever a shortage of toilet paper. Yes?
Professor, is there any way we can get the water from up north, Western Australia, down to my garden in Perth?
Yeah. The easy answer is absolutely. We did it. Is it?
For free.
Go to Marrakesh. It's free. It goes from the Atlas and it comes all the way down, free fall. Yeah. I mean, it all depends on what you want. So it's not, the limitation is really not the technology. We can do it. We can make pipes. We can use like mines that are kind of empty and transit the water there. We can do all sorts of stuff. Our knowledge of hydrogeology is still not there. However, I know there is a hydrogeologist here. Someone told me, because I need to be careful. Yeah, you're a hydrogeologist, so I'm going to say something, and maybe you will agree with me. There's still variability and uncertainty about hydrogeology this big in terms of our understanding. Is it true?
Well, we're a long way from understanding the hydrogeology.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone said to me, the hydrogeology and water divining have a lot in common, except with hydrogeology you get a report. Yes?
Thank you for your presentation. It's most interesting and stimulating. I would like to seek your opinion here.
Yeah.
I have very strong feelings about here in Perth, living on the edge of the desert. And I will, for the moment, dismiss the supply charge of domestic water and concentrate on the actual consumption cost. And my feelings here are that we pay a pittance for 1,000 litres of water to be delivered to our door. However, we're prepared to pay $2.50 or more for 1 litre of petrol, which you can only use once.
And you have to travel to it to get it.
Any
It doesn't.
comments there, please?
Oh, again, it's a societal decision. So, it's a political decision. Now, everything about, I will be lying to you to say if I said that everything about water is not political. Of course, it's a decision that people have to take. And I think there are views like yours, and there are views in what's called non-revenue water, for example. There's lots of water that's being used but not accounted for. And I think that at the end of the day, if you can think about water as like a series of cycles, and people think about it as one cycle, but it's not. It's like a very complicated watch with like hundreds of millions of little cycles in it. So some of them we have control over, some of them we don't have control over. We certainly have lots of control over what we do with urban water. Lots of it falls, and we send it to the ocean, and we collect it from the ocean, and we clean it, and we bring it back to you. So we could catch it halfway too. It's actually will be less salty. It will cost less in terms of energy. But the reality of it is that eventually, and that's the plan, the strategic plan that the Water Corporation has, and that takes into account a whole number of things, is that the cost of producing water will be dependent very strongly on the energy market. Because at the moment, the biggest bill that the Water Corporation receives is that from the power company. Yeah, that's the biggest. It's the biggest client. So the power company is happy if the Water Corporation is pumping. But you can do it differently. So there's lots of opportunity. We can redesign. We certainly have to reshape the way we deliver services in the future, because with the doubling of population of 2050, we have to redefine these things. We can't. Eventually, my vision is that you will get some kind of water to your home. Maybe you will be able to capture it from the air, and then you can basically treat it to a level that you want. Now, people who have boats, ocean-going boats, can go for a long time on their own desalination plant. They are the size of a printer these days. And you can have one in your home, and you can go off the grid if you wanted. So the future is that technology will be very, very accessible, and it will not rely on big networks. What you don't see about water is what costs the most, the pipes. There is enough pipes in Western Australia to go around the globe at the furthest space, at the equator, about 43,000 kilometers. Think about it. Every house has a pipe that goes to it, and everything has to be moved around, and everything has to be pumped. So I think that's really the exciting part. So something that I say to my students, I go like, here's a city that's going to double in population, design the water system without making the pipes bigger. Go. That's the challenge. They do it. There's so many possibilities and so many solutions. Yes? Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot.
How come we don't still see them here?
You can have one. Just order it online. When I say this.
It seemed to be a really good solution.
Yeah. Of course, the problem here is that, yes, you can have that. So water is three things. Very simple again. Water is the source, what we call production, is the storage, and is the treatment, right? So three elements. So not because you have water sitting there that it's going to be usable for you. So you still have to, and if you have water, you need enough, you need to store enough of it. So the biggest expense is really in the storage. That's why we move things around a lot. That's right. Yeah. So, that's the thing, what we call microgrids is sort of the future. But there's a lot that can, yes?
If gold was being discovered in Kalgoorlie in 1993 rather than 1893, would they have built a pipeline?
Yeah, probably not.
And in 2093, how would you do it then?
In the future? Yeah, in the future, there's different kind of salty water there. You just have to have the right membrane technology. Because if you haven't seen the desalination plant, it's really not rocket science. It's very simple. You can build one yourself. It's actually a big bun-ins with like thousands of cartridges that, you pressure the water through, and there's like small holes that the water comes out of it. So different kind of salts takes different technology. And, in Kalgoorlie, we know the quality of that water. It's already there. You can take it. There's a lot of it. It's just not. But at the moment, because the network has grown, we need to do something about it. We did. But again, it's a political decision. Yes?
Is anybody working on some kind of scheme so we don't use drinking water to flush the toilet?
Yeah, good idea. Yes, the Water Corporation is exactly working on that. And that's part of their strategic plan, is to reduce the reliance on scheme water. We do lots of things with scheme water or potable drinking water that is tested, that is treated to the best standards in the world. We have one of the, I know that people go like, oh, water tastes this, or water tastes like, go to some places, go to Europe. It's really top notch. Now in Germany, if you wash your car at home, they tell on you the police comes to your house. No, you're not allowed to. Why? You drive your car to the washing facility that pays the right tax to clean the water, to make that water recyclable. So there's lots of things. But at the moment, my colleague Richard Thibault, who runs the state held water unit, said to me, Anas, at the moment the legislation is telling me you flush the toilet with your drinking water. You wash the car with your drinking water. That's what the legislation is saying to me. That's what I'm doing. Because if someone gets sick because of something, so we have to implement. The biggest intervention that we're doing is injecting the water in the ground and So when I arrived to Perth about 18 years ago, the Water Corporation was at the front of the paper. They're going to make you drink your toilet. Now it's like page 64. So nobody cares anymore. People understand that technology. We told them technology is, I still play this game on people. I say, here's the water that we just desalinated from wastewater. I put it on the table. And these are like, reasonable people. So as I'm talking to them, I push it towards them. They back off. So this is how I do tests on people. People are still worried about the idea that they may be drinking water but I can assure you that you give me any kind of water, we go now to the lab and we treat it and I drink it. Anytime. That's not the problem. The problem is how to transport it, how to use it, is it fit for purpose, and that's really, yes? I say you can. Yeah, there are lots of people who do, actually. There are lots of people in California, in Australia, whatever. Lots of people with boats that are like their homes. They have just that. And you have enough technology, you can press the button for the bubbled water, half bubbled, clean water, anything you want. It's possible and it's actually accessible and cheap. But at the moment, that's what we do. We just, we have a water utility that does the service. But it's exciting. Listen to our podcast. There's so many stories that will make you think about water differently. And I think I'm getting the nod that I need to stop now. And people who invite a professor and say, you only have to speak for 15 minutes, it's very hard. Thank you so much.